Okay, so as we covered last, right before break, what this is showing us is we have a complete connection to the internet. Everything is working properly. So it's not only telling us that all the ISP stuff is working, but it's also telling us that our own IP configuration is correct. So our IP address, our subnet mask, our DNS server, our physical connections are working properly. It's working properly. Now what I'd like you to do is tell me if the response here, when I ping www.microsoft.com, if it comes back and it says unable to resolve hostname, what could be wrong? There are lots of things. I want you to think about it before you answer it. There are lots of things that could be wrong. If the machine is on and I'm at a command prompt and this is the first testing that I've done, if it comes back and says unable to resolve IP address, what are the potential things that could go wrong? Give me one. DNS is not working properly, which could mean what? A couple different things. The DNS is down at the ISP, or raise your hands. Go ahead. Got any more? DNS is not working at the ISP, or
your own router.
My own router, which is also doing DNS for me. It's resolving. It's either resolving or forwarding my DNS requests. May not be working. The router itself may not be working. What else? What was the issue I had earlier? Yes. Let's stick with DNS and we'll come back to yours. Yes.
The default gateway's wrong.
Let's stick with DNS. We'll come back to yours. Okay. So, all right. Here's the scenario. I'm unable to ping www.microsoft.com. It's coming back unable to resolve. However, someone else is able to do it on my same network. So I've eliminated some possibilities. I've eliminated the ISP being an issue. I've eliminated the fact that DNS is not working at the ISP or in my own DNS. I've eliminated the fact that my router's not working properly. Yes? Let's stick with DNS. I'm giving you hints here. I'm sticking with DNS. What could be wrong on my machine? What was wrong with the example I gave you at the beginning of this class? Kristen?
You had 2 DNS?
What's that?
You had 2 of them?
That was my problem, but when it boils down to it, on my machine, what was wrong? Yes? Yes?
Did it have something to do with DHCP?
Huh?
Did it have something to do with the enabling of
My problem did have a problem with DNS. Actually, I'm sorry, mine was gateway. All right, so instead it could be a bad configuration on my machine only. Could be my machine is configured improperly. I'm giving you the answer. My machine is configured improperly, so you need to think about that. If someone else is able to get to it properly on the same network that you're on, then chances are there's something wrong with your configuration. If something's wrong with your configuration, where's the first place you should look? Come on, think about this. Where's the first place you should look? Jessica? IP config, to see what your IP configuration is. First place you should look, okay? You've already determined that something's wrong. Now you need to start from the scratch and figure out what it is. Now Microsoft would tell you that you want to start at your own machine and work your way out. My personal preference is that you instead do this. Ping something you know it's going to respond if everything is right, and if it comes back, then you know everything is configured properly, okay? But if that doesn't work, then I say go back to the Microsoft solution, which is start at the beginning. Well, I would do ipconfig, but Microsoft is saying, okay, ping the loopback address. If I told you to ping the loopback address, Zach, what would you do? What is it? Like,
So you...
I know, but what are you actually going to type in? That's my question.
Oh,
Ping loopback address. We covered this beginning of class today. What's ping loopback address? What is the loopback address? Text.
127.0.0.1.
127.0.0.1. Everyone should know that. What that's going to do is it's going to test to make sure that you have a valid IP address. I'm sorry, it's going to tell you that you have something configured properly. Your network adapter is working properly. It doesn't mean that necessarily the right IP address, but it's going to tell you that IP is configured properly, it's installed properly, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you ping at 127.0.0.0.1 and you get a response. It comes back right. In fact, if everybody would do that now, if you haven't done so already, please do. Ping space 127.0.0.1. What does it give you, Jessica? No, Jill, what does it give you? Space. You're right, ping.
Well, no, I understand. Okay, reply from 127.0.0.1 is all working properly. Okay? That's working. Now Microsoft would say you want to check your own IP address to make sure that your IP address is configured properly. So you do IP config. Now, if you just do IP config, it's only going to give you a little bit of information, but it's also you're going to have to know what should be in place. If you do IP config and it comes back and says that the IP version 4 address is 169.254.something.something, what is that telling you? Jason knows it. Everybody should have their hand up right now. Unless the only way you know answers to this is to look them up in your notes. Everyone should know this. This is stuff that you should memorize. 169.254 is what? That is an example of, or the start of an IP address that is what? Larry?
Isn't that private?
Not just private. It is, that's part of the definition, private. Jason? Or, excuse me, Austin. Okay, who knows? Who knows the answer? No one knows the answer. No one knows what a 169.254 IP address is. Even though it was in your quiz, even though it was in the book. Look in your notes if you don't know the answer. 169.254. If it's not in your notes, then your notes are missing. Quinn Goronsky. APIPA, automatic private IP addressing. What does APIPA use, Frank? What does APIPA use? Mike Lieber. When does APIPA use, Michael? Josh. What is APIPA? Jill. Jason. Tex. Anyone? APIPA. What is it? All right, stop, stop, stop. Get away from your computers, listen to me very carefully and memorize this. APIPA is a function of Microsoft IP addressing, the IP stack, that allows you to communicate on a network using IP even when there's not a DHCP server available. Scenario, all of you are here for a LAN party. The DHCP server is down for some reason. You boot up your machines, every one of your network adapters says obtain an IP address automatically. Your adapters go out, try to find a DHCP server, can't find it. Your machine will come back with a 169.254.something.something IP address, which means every one of you will be able to communicate with each other, but you will not be able to communicate on the internet or anything else on another network. It's not routable. It's one of those automatic private IP addressing, APIPA. Know it, memorize it, you need to know this. So if it comes, anytime your computer comes back 169.254.something, that means you can't find the DHCP server. Okay? So, going back through some of the troubleshooting. As Microsoft says, you check your IP address, it comes back with something other than 169.254. It comes back with a private IP address. Someone else answered APIPA is private. That's only partially true. What are the other ranges of IP addresses, of private IP addresses? Give me one range for a private IP address. Yes? 10.0.0.0 with an /8 network. So chances are you're going to know what IP address range your network is supposed to be, if you've ever done this before, on your own network. In this classroom, I think it's 172, isn't it? Huh? Or is it 10?
10.
All right, so it's a 10 series. At my house, I know that a valid IP address is 172.16. Yes?
Question.
Yes?
You said an APIPA, is that, you have that, is it from DNS or DHCP?
DHCP. If you can't find the DHCP server, which passes out IP address,
your computer's IP configuration will automatically assign itself a 169.254 IP address. What, Austin?
Yeah, why is it that iPhones a lot of times?
I don't know, I don't care about iPhones, I hate iPhones, I hate any Macintosh product. And it doesn't apply to this discussion, so let's keep moving. Okay, APIP, it comes back, 169.254, that means you can't find a DHCP server. Chances are there's nothing wrong with your computer, right? You need to figure out whether it's the router or what should be your DHCP server. If your computer comes back and gives you an IP address that should be on your network, like a 10 series or a 172 or a 192 or whatever the other devices on your network are, but you can't connect to the internet, Microsoft would say you ping what? What is the next step in the process? Yes?
You know that host,
Where? Where should that host be?
in a different network.
Let's assume that you've already determined that the host that you hit on the other side of the network should be responding. So what is the other host? You're right. What should I be pinging? Another host.
Would you want it to be a continuous ping then?
Not necessarily? Yes. You're making this too difficult. I want to ping a host on my same network that I know is going to respond. So now I know whether or not my IP configuration is bad. Okay, let's say that comes back, but I still can't ping the internet. What's the next thing I want to ping? All we're doing is using the ping right now. What's the next thing I would ping? I can ping something on my own network. What's the next step to figure out somewhere in between my computer and the internet is the problem? Yes? Ping the router. Ping the interface for the router that should be there. Assuming when you did IP config, it gives you a valid gateway address, ping that IP address. If it comes back and it says it can reply, cool. All right? Now, let's back up. We do ping www.microsoft.com. It comes back and says unable to resolve host name. Okay, we've gone through all the steps, which would be the same. The next step would be on your own network, ping a host name, not an IP address. Because what's that going to tell you, Larry?
It's going to tell you what their IP address is.
If it comes back, you ping computer1.mynetwork.local or whatever the name of your host name is, and it comes back unable to resolve IP address. Chris, what's that going to tell me? I'm sorry?
DNS isn't working.
DNS is not working properly. So now, I probably have fixed the problem connecting to Microsoft.com. If DNS is not working, there's no possible way that I can ping www.microsoft.com and get a positive response because it's never going to resolve it to an IP address. So now I would say, well, let's ping an IP address that we know works on the internet, just to confirm Christopher's theory. And I would ping 4.2.2.1 or ping.8.8.8.8. Write those two IP addresses down. 4.2.2.1 and 8.8.8.8 will almost always respond if your connection is correct. And with that little pearl of wisdom, I'm going to let you go for the day. Thursday, under no circumstances will we not have a test. We will have our test on this chapter Thursday morning, first thing. Have a great day. Stay sober, drive safe, turn off the video, please. What?
I don't know if it's my ear's not working, but the first one, the first address you pick is 1.2.